Hi there. Thanks for joining me today. My name is Shabna Makrami. I will be doing a session on Super Visa. We got a lot of clients asking about Super Visa, so this session is for you. I have Facebook running live session, and then we have Instagram followers here. So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining me today. So first we're going to start off with what is Super Visa, who's eligible, and then we can talk about the requirements, as well as, if there's any particular questions, you can message me and I'll be delighted to answer those questions for you. So for Super Visa, what it is, it's for parents and grandparents. This is a particular visa that focuses on bringing parents and grandparents to Canada. We have visitor visa applications for everyone else, and then Super Visa for parents and grandparents. And the reason why they launched this is because the parental sponsorship applications take quite a long time. And so in the meantime, you have this temporary document that allows you to come to Canada and be reunited with your parents and grandparents. So that's what Super Visa is. Very similar to a visitor visa with regards to documentation, and we'll go over the differences between a visit visa and a Super Visa. To be eligible for a Super Visa, you need to have a permanent resident or a Canadian citizen child in Canada. So anyone over the age of 18 that's permanent resident or Canadian citizen can then bring over their parents or their grandparents on a Super Visa. Someone who's on a work visa or a study permit is not eligible for a Super Visa. Instead, you can definitely apply for a visit visa or visitor visa for your family members. And you can check the videos that I've made on visitor visa for that in that regards. Part of that is to demonstrate, obviously, that you are the biological child for your parents. And so how you demonstrate that is a simple birth certificate. And in that birth certificate, it shows your parents' name, your date of birth. And so that would demonstrate that those are your biological parents. Adopted children, so long as you're legally adopted, will also qualify. You have to include those documents to say that you were legally adopted. So that qualifies. But if you are adopted, but you don't have any legal documents to prove that you are the adopted child, then you don't qualify. So that's that. A letter of invitation is highly recommended. So you put in the letter of invitation that you're bringing over your mom, your dad, or your mom and dad, or your grandparents. You're going to mention how long the parents are going to come to Canada. You're going to mention where they're going to stay, what kind of accommodations you will provide. So all of that should be mentioned in your invitation letter. Similarly, in the purpose of travel letter, where your parents or your grandparents mention the purpose of their travel, that should be a match as to where you're going to be residing, who's going to be taking care of you, etc. So the letter of invitation, as well as the purpose of travel letter, is highly recommended and needed to support the application. You do have a financial support obligation, in a sense that you have to demonstrate to the officer that you meet what they call the Lyco Requirement. So as a permanent resident or Canadian citizen bringing over your parent or grandparents, you need to meet a Lyco requirement, a low income cutoff requirement. And it all depends on your family size. And there's a lot of question with regards to the family size. And I'm just going to go on my screen here because I don't recall off the top of my head what it is, but I can tell you based on looking at my screen. So let's say it's you, your husband, and you have 2 small children. That makes you a household of 4. But then you want to bring over mom and dad. Now your household is a household size of 6. So you'd have to go to the low income cutoff chart for super visa, which is different from low cutoff income when you apply for permanent residency. So don't confuse the two. They are substantially different. So in this example, 6 people, 6 persons, your family household income should be $61,613. And by family, that means you, as well as your spouse or your common law partner. You together can show an income of $61,613. So long as you can demonstrate that, then you become eligible to bring over your parents and or your grandparents for this matter. That how you demonstrate that is your last year's tax document. So your notice of assessment, line 150 is what the officer is looking for. Now, some clients do ask me, what about I make $61,000 now, but I didn't make it in the previous years. In that case, you're not eligible yet. They want your notice of assessment to show $61,163. I think that's what I said. Yeah, $61,613, sorry. You have to demonstrate that with your last year's notice of assessment, not what is happening today. And then they also want proof of pay stubs and bank accounts, etc., to demonstrate that you're currently also making that amount. So that's the biggest one. The other biggest one, which is different from a visitor visa, is the medical insurance. So your parents or your grandparents that you're bringing over to Canada have to have medical insurance. The visitor visa, it's highly recommended, but it's not mandatory part of the application. For a super visa, it is mandatory. And so you have to purchase medical insurance, Canadian insurance, so from a Canadian company, for at least 1 year and at least $100,000 coverage. You have to pay for this coverage. So a lot of times clients show an invoice and say, okay, I have medical insurance. You have to pay for that. Once you pay and you get a receipt that says it's paid, then the officer will accept it. Now the coverage starts, and you should check with your medical insurance provider, from the date of entry from Canada. And so that 1 year is from the date of entry, not from the date that you necessarily purchased it. So keep that in mind. Most medical insurance providers, if God forbid your super visa application is denied, they give you a full refund. So check in with your medical insurance provider and make sure that it's a refundable policy. And so you really have nothing to lose in that case. But medical insurance is mandatory. Also, upfront medical examination is mandatory for a super visa application versus a visitor visa. It's not. You don't need to do upfront medicals. You only do that if the officer asks for it. So part of the application, you do need to include that as well. So birth certificate, medical insurance, the notice of assessment, and upfront medicals are the 4 mandatory documents. Everything else is to demonstrate that your application is strong. Things like financial documents, where you're going to stay, how long you're going to stay, what is the purpose. Even though super visas are a 10-year visas, and currently, which very soon they're going to change this, but currently you can stay 2 years at a time, you still need to say to the officer that it's temporary, and you still need to demonstrate, just like a visitor visa, ties to your home country that you will go back to. So ties can be anything from employment to property to family obligations, etc. So treat it like a visitor visa and include those 4 main documents we just discussed. That's really for the super visa. I just want to double check my notes to see if I'm missing anything. Nope, that's it. Visitor visa and super visa, keep in mind that if you're eligible for the super visa, you should apply for that, because the chances of approval for a super visa is usually higher than a regular visitor visa. I know that it is a little bit more costly. Usually the legal fees are a little bit higher. You have a mandatory medical insurance, etc. The processing times is a little bit longer, but the end result is also usually better. A visitor visa, because the turnaround is a little bit faster, the legal fees are a little bit less, the requirements are a little bit less, the results are also not always better. So I always encourage my clients that if you are eligible for a super visa, you should apply for that and just be patient with the processing time. Last thing I'm going to mention with the super visa is, again, going back to the low income cutoff. Let's say, for example, we go back to the example I gave you, you're a family of 4, it's you, your husband, and your 2 dependent children, and only you want to bring your mom, but not your dad. You are still considered a household of 6. The only way it becomes a household of 5 is if your if your dad has divorced your mom and you have a divorce certificate, or, God forbid, your father has passed away and you have a death certificate. So remember that, because a lot of people submit the application as a household 5 and they demonstrate the Lyco requirement for 5 when it should be 6. And so a household 5 versus 6, there's usually about a $10,000 income difference on your notice of assessment. So that's a very important piece of document. And knowing what your family size is going to ultimately make or break the application. So I'm just going to check and see if there's any questions, but that kind of summarizes a super visa. If you have any questions related to that, feel free to ask. I'm just going to give it a quick few minutes to see if there's anyone who wants to ask any questions about a super visa, and then we can wrap it up. Okay. I see there's some viewers here, which would be great. So nope, they're saying that there are no questions, which is good. That means I did a good job explaining the super visa. So if you have any questions about super visa, visitor visa, or any other immigration related matters, feel free to call us. I put my number at the bottom, or email us at info@thevisa.ca. Would be nice to talk to you and to see what we can do for you. Thank you very much for joining, and until next time.